Next, this one. What the Super El Nino will do to our planet in 2026? By the secret of the universe. I have no idea what the El Nino is, but let's learn about it.
Right now, something is happening in the Pacific Ocean that most people have no idea about. Thousands of meters below the surface, an enormous pulse of warm water is moving eastward along the equator, invisible from above, but carrying enough heat to reshape the weather of an entire planet. Scientists have a name for it, a Kelvin wave. And where it's heading and what it's about to do when it arrives at the surface is why climate forecasters are using language this summer that most of them have never used before.
Okay.
In March of this year, forecasters gave a 22% chance of happening, a real possibility, but nothing alarming. Then April came, and that number jumped to 80%. And then the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts released its May update. The number that came back stopped people in their tracks. 100%. A 100.
Okay. I'm scared. Hold me.
Percent probability
I
of
don't know
a
what this thing
super
will
El
do, but
Niño forming by November. And the projected peak temperature of the ocean at the center of all this? 3 degrees Celsius above average.
which again, like you tell me that, and I'm like, what's the problem? But I'm sure it probably caused a lot of problem. What does that mean? What will this do? I mean, we all know climate change has been absolutely insane, right? Like right now, like we're still like just started June, but it's already been like a month of like pretty crazy temperature for this time in Normandy, the top of France where I live in. I was talking to my mom, and yeah, like, she's lived for 58 years, and when she was young, 30 years ago, it was never this hot at this time in this place, It was so, hello. So yeah, we're all gonna die. Let's go.
A level of heat in the Pacific that hasn't been recorded since 1877, almost 150 years ago. The forecasts are not just pointing in the same direction, they are converging faster than the models can keep up with. And what they're converging on is something that will touch almost every region on Earth.
Okay. I'm scared.
Before we talk about what a super El Nino does, it's important to understand what El Nino actually is, because most people have heard the name without fully understanding.
You have a storm? Well, stay safe. Seems like I have the two people in the chat both have storm. Azriel was talking about a typhoon. Okay, stay safe, guys.
The mechanism. Under normal conditions in the tropical Pacific, trade winds blow from east to west, pushing warm surface water toward Asia and Australia, and allowing cold, nutrient-rich water to rise up along the South American coast. That's the baseline state of the Pacific: warm water in the west, cooler water in the east. El Niño happens when those trade winds weaken. The warm water that was being pushed westward sloshes back toward the center and east of the Pacific. Sea surface temperatures rise significantly in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. And because the ocean and atmosphere are constantly exchanging heat and moisture, that shift in ocean temperature doesn't stay in the Pacific. I
never quite listened in science class or chemistry, and yeah, this kind of thing are a bit hard to follow for me.
Organizes weather patterns across the entire globe, changing where it rains, where it droughts, where it floods, where it burns, and ultimately pushing global average temperatures upward as the ocean releases stored heat back into the atmosphere. El Niño events happen naturally, roughly every 2 to 7 years. A weak one barely registers outside the tropics. A moderate one shifts rainfall patterns across multiple continents. A strong one reshapes the weather for an entire year or more. and a super El Nino is in a different category entirely. At that threshold, the sheer volume of heat transferred from the ocean to atmosphere is sufficient to physically displace the jet streams of both hemispheres, generating simultaneous droughts, floods, wildfires, and heat waves across countries thousands of kilometers from the Pacific.
Okay, so yeah, it just messes with like all of the different possible natural disasters by making them more likely to happen. Okay. Well,
There have been only 4 confirmed Super El Nino events since reliable
Wait a
records
minute.
began in 1950. Each one left a mark. The 1997 to 1998 event triggered catastrophic wildfires across Indonesia, devastating flooding in Peru and Ecuador, and widespread coral bleaching across the Pacific.
cool
The
bleaching.
economic damage ran into the hundreds of billions of dollars. The 2015 to 2016 event pushed 2016 to become the hottest year ever recorded at that time.
2016, huh? I was Ikikomori in 2016. I'm sure it was hot because I lived in the south of France where it's like often over 40 degrees in summer. But I don't specifically remember like this being like the hottest year ever. Yeah.
These were serious, consequential events that affected hundreds of millions of people across multiple continents. But here's the thing. Every one of those super El Niños happened on a cooler planet than the one we're living on right now.
I mean,
The Earth today is approximately 1.3 degrees Celsius warmer than it was before industrialization. The last 12 months have been the warmest 12-month period ever recorded in human history.
I believe it.
The oceans, which absorb over 90% of the excess heat that climate change traps, are warmer than they've been in the modern record. So, when El Nino releases that stored ocean heat back into the atmosphere, as it always does, it isn't starting from the same place previous events started from. It's starting from a higher floor.
Yeah, we're in a worse state, so like natural disaster in a state that is already worse than before just means everything is worse, and it's like a continuous thing. I mean, it's, you know, every year we just make things worse, right? I mean, I know many countries have been finally kind of realizing like climate change is real and you know, started to do some things about it, but it's still like, yeah, I mean, we have like 200 years to undo, fix, I guess. Yeah.
Think about it like a fever on top of a fever. The body was already running hot, and now something is about to push it higher. That's what makes 2026 different. Not just the strength of the El Nino itself,
2 weeks.
but the world is
Remind
arriving
me then.
into.
I'll definitely check the last 2 episodes out, yeah.
This is the part that actually matters for most people watching this, because a super El Nino doesn't feel the same everywhere. Depending on where you live, it either brings too much water or not nearly enough. And understanding which
Same
side
as-
of that you're on is the key. Start with Asia. For India, Indonesia, the Philippines, and parts of Australia, a super El Nino typically means one thing: drought. The monsoon weakens. The rain that billions of people depend on for their crops and their water supply arrive late or don't arrive at all. The 2015 to 2016 Super El Nino contributed to one of India's worst agricultural droughts in decades. If 2026 matches or exceeds that intensity, the same regions face the same risk, except with larger populations and food.
I was gonna say the problem is also that India is one of those countries that hasn't had the problem of population decline, right? So it's actually worse. And I was about to talk about, you know, like these days everybody is talking about, you know, Japan, Korea, and many countries who have, you know, the birth rate is falling and the population is declining. In some way it's a bad thing, but in some other way for the planet maybe it will be a good thing because less people, less, pollution, less overuse of the land, etc. Right? I mean, it's probably gonna be decades of like hardships before things get like used under like a small population, but maybe that is the right way for things to go. Yeah.
Food systems already under stress from years of extreme weather. East Africa gets the opposite. Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia. These regions typically see above average rainfall during El Niño, which sounds like good news until you see what that actually looks like on the ground. The 2023 to 2024 El Niño, which wasn't even a super event, caused devastating floods across the region that displaced hundreds of thousands of people. In South America, the Amazon basin faces drought and heat, dangerous in a rainforest that is already under enormous pressure from deforestation. Around 40% of the Amazon is already affected by some form of forest degradation. A strong El Niño on top of that raises wildfire risk to levels that could rival the catastrophic 2019 and 2023 fire seasons. Meanwhile, Argentina,
the world is fucked between the politics and all this. I mean, there's no hope these days. Like, I don't want to be that guy because I try to be hopeful, but seriously, between like global warming and all those natural disasters that just happen more and more, and then the political situation of the world, I mean, we're so doomed.
Southern Brazil tend to see the opposite. Wetter conditions, above average rainfall, increased flooding risk in low-lying areas. For North America, the effects depend heavily on where you are. The southern United States typically sees wetter, milder winters. The Pacific Northwest faces reduced snowpack and expanded wildfire seasons come summer. The Midwest generally gets a warmer than average winter, by around 3 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And across Europe, the latest forecast is already showing above normal temperatures.
I mean, I can tell you it's already happened. Like, they're showing France in the red there, and I can tell you, I was talking about it just before, but yeah, the fact that like the first 2 weeks of May, almost every day we had like 30 to 35 degrees was insane. Like, that was level of heat that shouldn't be there yet. Like right now it's okay, like today it's like 20 or something. Right now it's normal, but yeah, like 2 weeks ago it was crazy. And again, I live like in the north of France where it's supposed to be like way cooler, and yet.
Expected across nearly the entire continent throughout the summer months, with the strongest signal over southern Europe and the Mediterranean.
Hurricane.
Here's something that surprises most people when they first hear it. A super El Niño actually makes the Atlantic hurricane season quieter. Not safer everywhere, but quieter in the Atlantic. And understanding why reveals something genuinely interesting about how connected the world's weather systems really are. Connected and almost never reported that way. And that's actually the deeper problem with how most of us read the news today. Each of us only sees a narrow
It's a nada. Okay, I'll pass it.
slice of what we're not being shown. For example, news
Promise is like a good one, though.
former nature engine the boys plan by SOU. Why does that happen? Why does a heating Pacific calm down hurricanes thousands of miles away? It comes down to one thing: wind shear. When the Pacific Ocean heats up dramatically, it changes the wind patterns high up in the atmosphere over the Atlantic and the Caribbean. Those winds create what meteorologists call wind shear. Essentially, powerful gusts at high altitude that tear developing hurricanes apart before they can grow into something serious. Hurricanes need calm, consistent conditions to strengthen. Wind shear is their enemy, and a strong El Niño fills the...
You're saying that. You're always only in the chat. Always talking about boobs and all that. Come on, why not boss? Why not being, spending all of our brain power into, solving the world, but also, being horny. But I see what you mean.
The Atlantic with it. NOAA and AccuWeather are already forecasting a below average Atlantic hurricane season for 2026 because of this. For communities along the Gulf Coast and in the Caribbean that have lived through devastating seasons in recent years, that is genuinely good news. But here's the catch. The Pacific gets the opposite. El Niño warms the eastern Pacific, reduces wind shear there, and creates ideal conditions for storms to develop and strengthen off the coast of Mexico and Central America. AccuWeather is projecting 17 to 22 named storms in the eastern Pacific this season, with up to 8 potentially reaching major hurricane status. So while one ocean calms down, the other heats up. The Atlantic quiet.
So, again, I'm assuming like everything he's talking about is pretty accurate. Huh? Don't at the same time understand like weather and meteorological prediction can be very, inaccurate as things change very fast. Huh? But I guess we should expect that like at the end of summer, so just in a couple months, things are gonna get really bad. Yeah, toward November, he said. I guess we need to get ready for that. But when I say we, it's more like government or something, I guess. Like, what am I gonna do? Damn, it's kind of scary. Do you get hot easily or cold? Hot, I mean, I'm fat. And when you're fat, you get hotter faster and you sweat faster, I guess. And I just don't like hot weather. I mean, I wouldn't say I love cold weather, but I guess I prefer cold to hot. Though obviously, like, the best is like, middle ground. You look smart. Do I? I don't have any glasses.
The Pacific intensifies, and whether that trade-off works in your favor depends entirely on which coastline you call home. Beyond the floods and droughts and hurricanes, there's a bigger number that climate scientists are watching very carefully: the global average temperature. Because a super El Niño doesn't just disrupt regional weather, it pushes the thermometer up for the entire planet. And where that thermometer ends up over the next 2 years could be genuinely historic. The pattern is reliable and well understood. El Niño releases heat that the ocean has been storing.
We just need to cool the earth. I mean, it's not that deep, guys. We just need to say, like, everybody in the world, you leave your fridge open for 1 hour every day, and we're gonna cool the world. I mean, it's not complicated. Just leave your fridge open for a little bit, and it will be fine. Trust me.
For years back into the atmosphere. That process consistently pushes global temperatures upward. The only difference is the starting point or the baseline. The planet is already warmer than it's ever been in the modern record. So when El Niño adds its heat on top of that, the numbers go somewhere new. Carbon Brief currently projects 2026 to be the second warmest year on record. But if the 3-degree ocean anomaly the models are projecting fully materializes, scientists are warning that 2020
global temperature from the 80s to 2027? Like, okay, it's a crazy looking graph, but I guess the number is actually only like, well, only, it's a big deal, but it's only like 1.5 degrees Celsius. But that's like in 30 years, right? And looking at the graph, it's only getting faster. I mean, yeah. Like, obviously at a rate like this, wait, let me look. 2010 is right here. Like, let's say it's like half a degree every 10 years. It doesn't sound like much right now, but, like, imagine in 50 years, right? I mean, like 4 or 5 degrees more than 50 years. And we're talking about like average. That's really bad. Especially in places that are already really hot. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, some countries, they get like 40 degrees Celsius, 45 easy. But it means that like in 50 years, they might get like 50. And I don't know what the limit is, but at this temperature, I mean, people just die. I mean, people already die at 40 degrees. especially like elderly people. So we're doomed. We're doomed. We'll come back as well. The Micro Evangelion pilot block kits are $20-30. Okay, that's insanely cheap. Okay, insanely.
7, when the full atmospheric impact of peak ocean temperatures typically arrives, with a lag of several months, could break the global temperature record by a meaningful margin. James Hansen's team at Columbia University projects global temperatures could reach 1.7 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by 2027. That would briefly push us above the 1.5 degree threshold that the Paris Agreement was designed to prevent.
Paris
One important
Agreement.
thing to understand here: a single year above 1.5 degrees is not the same as permanently crossing that threshold. Temperatures typically come back down when El Niño fades and La Niña.
Oh, for you it's temperature drop, huh? Interesting. The filter, yeah. That's the game matter for me, like, it's just so much hotter these days.
Niña conditions follow. But it doesn't mean that in 2026 and 2027, more people in more places will experience what a warmer world actually feels like in their daily lives, not as a statistic, as weather. So where does all this leave us? Every major institution agrees that El Niño is coming, that it's heading towards strong or super strength, and that it's arriving on the warmest baseline in recorded history.
I mean, he said
What that means
100%.
practically is straightforward. The regions most vulnerable to El Niño, South Asian farming communities, East African populations in flood-prone areas, Amazon ecosystems already under pressure, Pacific coastlines in the path of intensifying storms, have strong scientific reason to be preparing right now, rather than waiting for certainty that may only arrive once the event is already underway. Seasonal forecasting exists precisely to create that window of preparation, and right now, that window is open. This isn't about fear, it's about information. The planet has been through
I mean,
several
I'm
El
scared.
Niños before and come out the other side, but the ones that caused the least damage were the ones where communities, governments, and farmers knew what was coming and had time to act. The forecasts this week are giving us that time. The question is, what do we do with it? So thanks for watching, and thanks to Ground.
I feel like most governments won't do much about it because, you know, like the political situation of the world right now is so busy on things like that. I feel like they won't care that much about this right now. So there'll be consequences. Okay, well, obviously, you know, scary stuff. It's no secret. I think we've all known about it. I mean, it's been decades that people have been talking about climate change, and there's already been a lot of, you know, stuff getting worse. So, of course, it's only getting worse. I mean, that's just how it goes. If you come to Japan, July to September is hell flame, yeah. I would have a hard time. But at the same time, I think I'll be fine because I used to live in the south of France, as I said, and again, like, it was often over 40 degrees there, and, you know, I didn't love it, but I survived it, so I can survive. Move to the moon. Yeah, scary stuff, it's all I can say. I am very spooked, scared.